Hi, Professor. This is Jun Yan. So, in this year, what I learned that had the most impact on me was the persecution of indigenous peoples by the Canadian government. Today, I will discuss the systemic challenges faced by indigenous people in Canada, focusing on cultural deprivation, land depossession, and social health inequalities. So my research highlights how these issues are interconnected and rooted in colonial policies. I choose this topic because understanding these injustice is crucial to fostering reconciliation and equity in Canada. So first, I would like to discuss cultural deprivation. So culture is the foundation of people representing their identity and history. However, for Indigenous people in Canada, from the late 19th century to the late 20th century, the Canadian government forced Indigenous children to leave their home and families, sending them to church residential schools. In these schools, children were forbidden to speak their own language or practice their traditions. The purpose of those schools was to civilize indigenous children and erase their cultural identity, transforming them into proper Canadian citizens. This cultural destruction led to generations trauma and destabilized indigenous communities. According to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report, these policies caused long-lasting psychological damage and cultural loss, which can continue to affect the indigenous people. Even so, Canadian society has become more reflective and aware of this history. The consequence of these harms persist and impact the identity and social connections of indigenous peoples. So next, I will discuss the issues of land depossession. For indigenous peoples, land is not only the foundation for their survival, but also carries their history, culture, and beliefs. Sadly, much of their land was taken through unfair treaties and outright confiscation by the Canadian government. In the 19th century, many indigenous nations signed treaties with the government, but these treaties were often not honored. Indigenous people were forced to sign agreements without fully understanding their terms, and many were taken advantage of due to lack of legal knowledge and resources. As a result, indigenous people lost most of their land. The loss of land had a huge impact on indigenous culture and ways of life. Many tradition practices such as hunting, fishing, and ceremonies were disrupted, leading to the disconnection of indigenous people from their heritage. Today, many indigenous communities still live on lands that's poor in resources and isolated from broader society, facing economy and marginalization. So the last one I will like to address the social health inequalities that indigenous people face. Despite Canada being a highly developed development country, indigenous people often struggle with major health and living conditions challenges. Many indigenous communities still face poverty, lack of healthcare resource, and poor living conditions, especially in remote areas where many indigenous people are unable to access equal medical services. So, for example, housing conditions in many indigenous communities are dire with overcrowded homes, lack of clean drinking water, and poor sanitation. The lack of healthcare services is another pressing issues, as indigenous people often face discrimination and barriers to timely medical treatment. So even today, indigenous communities continue to face health crises such as high infant mortality rates, mental health issues. The root cause of these problems can be traced back to historical inequality and the suppressions of indigenous culture and practice. So for my reference, I use academic journal and government reports. They are a reliable sources to support my arguments. That's everything. Thank you.